All right. Good morning, evening, afternoon, guys. Welcome to Diverse Lab. Talk all things poetry. My name is Jeff,
I'm Matthias.
and today we're going to answer one of Google's most asked questions, at least as of the time of this recording, based on Google autofill. You know how you can type stuff and then it will complete your phrase.
I've never heard of. You said Google?
Oh, Bing. Sorry.
Bing. Oh, yeah. No, I've
No.
been
Alta Vista. Are you
AIM.
Any Alta Vista users here? That's that was the first one my dad put me on.
Really?
Yeah.
Underneath the candlelight.
No, it was legit back in the day. Anyway, so in the autofill, one of the first ones that comes up is how to write good poetry. It's a scary question. It's very terrifying. So we're gonna try our best to answer that. But before we get into that, how are things going? Things are good.
Things are good, man. I feel like, as a creative, this is a really interesting time for me as a creative, because I am both working on projects and I'm also in this place where I'm like designing other projects, and so there's a lot of stress. And actually, I just got finished with like kind of the bulk of one of my larger projects and my first kind of funded short film. Thank you. So
Very
it's
exciting.
like I got, you know I don't know if I really have a feeling like this when it comes to poetry, because it's like the poems are like you're by yourself, right? So if I'm writing a poem, then the only thing that I'm worried about is whether I can finish the poem. So I don't know if there's other productions, like I've done like I've done like plays and stuff like that before, but as far as a project where I'm like, hopefully not only is all the things that I have to put into this come together, but also everything that everybody else that is part of this, it comes together. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna hold you. It was looking hit or miss. It was looking a little iffy there at the end, but man, we came through and we shot a movie. And what was really great about it, shout out to everybody that is part. Like I'll probably talk more about this when stuff is releasing. But shout out to the Poet's Life,
Yes,
for
Christoph.
shout out to Christoph.
He's the man.
He's been just a really great kind of mentor throughout the process, and kind of making sure that not only everybody, but myself included, kind of had their bearings when it came to this project. But then shout out to everybody that was part of this project. That I'll talk more about, everybody, all the components, all the actors and stuff like that throughout. But yeah, no, it was a trying experience. There was a lot of hectic parts, but
I imagine.
all the things that essentially I'm able to take a deep breath now and be like, like it's really relieving, because essentially all the things that I need to be done with it's just time now. It has nothing to do with making sure people show up or making sure we get this in or whatever like that. It's just now just hammering through on my end. So yeah, it's good. I'm feeling a lot of relief and a lot of excitement for the next things to come. And how about you?
Yeah. So, first of all, Roses is sending you your accolades as you deserve.
I appreciate it.
Also got the new logo up.
Oh, look
They
at
actually sent me
that.
a couple logos to check out, and that was one of them. I appreciate that. Looks good.
Shout out
Looks
to
sharp.
Rose.
Looks sharp. Okay.
Wait, what made you go with just the one rose?
Roses, talk logos. Also, if you guys have some successes, this is the time. Kudos to you. Let us know some things, some projects you're excited about.
Yeah.
Artistically, I don't. I mean, I guess it's kind of artistic. I'm working on a book, but not a poetry book. So it's like my teaching business book. So one project I did was we have like a series of, I do like a daily live stream Monday through Friday. It's like short 10 minutes, and basically I'm compiling those videos
Yeah.
into a book, pretty much,
Yeah.
and then taking the transcription from those videos and then using the text from the transcriptions as an actual, that'll be the text of the book.
Yeah.
And then I can take the audio from the videos and then I can make an audio component. So it'll be like a video book, audio book, and book. And so I just finished getting all the videos together. Now I need to order them. And then once that's done, then I can pull the transcript and run it through like ChatGPT just to like fix any typos, remove all like the ums and the uhs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then have the manuscript ready. So I'll probably be self-publishing that and then getting that out ideally within the next couple of months. So
That's dope, man. I feel like, and this is a really good. I think whenever I get to hear about, or I'm like watching Jeff's process, like anything that we're talking about here, anything that Jeff is like breaking down and saying like this is a good idea, this is what you should do. He's like giving you the game that he's also practicing, because I feel like a lot of people are willing to give you like, you know, the smallest version of the thing that they're doing, so that they hopefully you don't eclipse, or hopefully, you know, you're not able to mimic, you're not able to do anything. They're kind of, you know, gatekeepers of that kind of process. And I think it's, you know, it's really refreshing, because it's super genuine, and like even offline it's hard to like, because it's hard to like convince you of this, because it's like we're online saying it, but even offline, Jeff is always an advocate for poets and for writers and for artists in general to be able to, you know, break free from the idea that, dang, I gotta, you know, I gotta be struggling with this art. I gotta be, you know, living from, you know, gig to gig. Hopefully this thing pans out. And can kind of put food on the table. Like, no, he's like, you know, there's things that you can do yourself, and he's also modeling that. So it's not just something that he's putting out there. It's something that he's practicing. So, man,
yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited for the book. I'm excited for, I think the potential that comes from, you know, not only just having these conversations, you know, with people at home, but also with like kind of really living out those plans.
Yeah. I think just the more I've done poetry, the less I'm interested in my own poetry. Like I still write it and stuff like that, but I'm much more interested in getting other people to kind of realize their full potential.
And that's
difficult.
Well, I feel like it's kind of like you know, I think it may be like the transition that a lot of actors take from like acting to directing, where it's like, you know, you might be like an incredible actor, and there's probably roles that you'll direct that like you might be like, I could do this better, or I could do that better. But it's like you're taking all the knowledge that you have from being incredible at your crafts, because like, to be clear, like he's a great poet, so like even being like I'm not interested in my work is not from a place of my work isn't doing things in the world, or it's not moving people. It's more about, man, like there is a transferability of the craft and of the mechanisms that I'm using to really push myself forward, that maybe I don't get that kind of satisfaction from in creating it myself. Like maybe I mean, some of it will come from that, but you know, there's probably I would imagine like a good amount of that comes from like seeing somebody adopt some of those cues, somebody take some of those cues and really applying it to their own work and seeing it work out in their own life.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why we're even here to begin with.
Shout out to Diversus.
Let us know again about your own success stories. That's just some quick updates on our end. Joshua mentioning about their logo. So again, in case you're just tuning in, welcome. Joshua has been telling us about their new logo, which you can see here. Say it's a representation of myself, who's an embodiment of all of us, as one learning to live through the journeys of life under God. Thank you.
Come on now.
Thank you for coming through.
Wait, myself, who is an embodiment of all of us? I rock with that.
The rose is a representation of myself, who's an embodiment of all of us. As one learning to live. It's like the rose is me, who is all of us.
So we're all roses.
As one. Through the journey of life.
We're all roses when we're all the same rose.
Just like many levels. You have to take that in sections.
Sure, Derek Rose is somewhere out there. Like, this is hitting hard.
Yeah, he's probably getting surgery somewhere.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Derek.
Derek Rose, if you're listening to this, man, I believe in you, man. I'm a fan. No, don't listen to that guy. Don't listen to Jeff.
Too soon?
Yeah.
Too soon, or just didn't wait long enough?
Oh my God.
Sorry, Derek.
Man.
So, on to today's main topic.
Oh wait, hold on.
We're
forgetting. Are we still on? Were you on for Friday?
Oh yeah, well.
Oh, my God.
Updates. Okay, so Poetry Mic, open mic, come out if you are a Columbus, Ohio-based poet or you're willing to travel.
Yeah.
Open mic Friday, 7:30 p.m. at Third Way Cafe.
Yeah.
Also tomorrow, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. we hold our about a 30-minute webinar. Joshua's there; he can tell you all about it. But basically, if you're interested in taking your writing and turning it into a course, a workshop, a webinar, even just a video, and you're kind of curious what's kind of some strategies for doing that effectively, we can help you with that. It's a free webinar. If you're interested in that, please reach out. Send us a message at theversuspoetry.com. You can message me on socials at theversuspoetry and things like that, and we get you registered.
For sure. And so we missed last week's
We did
open mic because we had some snow, we had some ice, and I think the way that global warming is set up right now is it might happen. It might be like a 90-degree day on Friday. If it is, I would be. I would be concerned about the earth, but I'd be excited about poetry because it's great that I get to do poems, even if the earth is getting a little too hot. So yeah, you should definitely, you should definitely come out, share some poems with us. Now, what are the rules again? So it's 2 poems?
2 poems, 5 minutes,
2
whatever
poems.
is the fastest of those.
Whichever happens first. We had some really great experiences our last time coming out. Some people shared some things that were really, really important and personal to them. Some people shared some funny stuff. Some people
also a number of first timers, which was
everybody was getting up like, oh, this is my first time ever reading a poem. Somebody stood up and said, this is my first time actually seeing. I was blind before this, and then I walked inside a Third Way Cafe, and I could see. So I was like, I'm going to read poems.
Poetry, guys.
And I don't know what's a better testimonial than that. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys, but if you want to see, we'll see there.
Also, a couple black-owned businesses rising up and saying what they're doing, which is cool. We appreciate that.
We love to see it.
Okay. That was all serious.
These are all real testimonials. We didn't record it because it was just it seemed really personal to him, so I didn't want to put him out there.
We can actually catch. We got a size poem up.
Oh yeah, we do.
This guy does poems.
Okay. I do poems every now and again.
Yeah. All right, so on Threads recently. So again, our main topic today is Google was saying one of the most common asked searches is how to write good poetry. So we thought we would take a stab at trying to resolve that. There's Shakespeare. You got an F.
That's a forehead on Shakespeare. Look at this guy.
Yeah, you got it.
It's a noggin.
There are levels, yeah. So when I was actually making this image, so I was using bing.com/create through DALL-E, and you can't put in Shakespeare. You can't make a picture with Shakespeare. I tried typing because it'll say content blocks. So I was like, okay. I tried Old English playwright. It's like, you can't do that. I was like, Victorian English. It's like, you can't do that.
Wait, why not? Is he a deity or something? His ghost is just inside of your Ethernet cable. It's like, we're not going to allow it.
Mickey Mouse is public domain now, but William Shakespeare, I can't. I was like, what's going on?
Wait, it's Mickey Mouse? I thought it was Steamboat Willie,
which is.
But there's versions of Mickey Mouse. I guess you can't.
You can't use the modern one that's colorized and things like that yet. But
Steamboat Willie, it's all yours.
Yep, take it.
Have fun with it, guys.
Take it. Yeah, that's literally as soon as it was public domain, you could find YouTube videos of just random people.
Dude, there are people. There's all kinds because the same thing happened with Winnie the Pooh and the horror film. So it's
So anyway,
we should do a Steamboat Willie poetry night. Just rub it in Disney's face. I don't know.
I don't know what that would look like. If you guys have ideas of what that look like, let us know.
I'm saying we should rent a steamboat.
All I'm saying was I put in work to make this thumbnail, guys, because
he had to go back in time and take a picture of William Shakespeare.
Yeah, I had to go back. I had to stylize it. I had to get my lithograph or whatever it's called. It was hard. So I just kind of run through these people's suggestions to get your thoughts. A couple people asking the question, Kalash Jacob, thanks for responding. What is your definition of good? What makes a poem good to you? Is it something you can define? Is it something you feel? Good poetry to me has movement and tension. It makes me feel, resonates with me, creates reaction. It's raw and honest and pushes the boundaries of normal. It thinks in ways prose traditionally doesn't. It asks why and isn't satisfied with the answer. It asks how and then shows you. Good poetry is like your second kiss. You figured it out.
It only took you 2 tries?
Or you were not slapped hard enough.
It's like you thought you figured it out, but then she keeps turning down your prom proposals.
Any thoughts on this definition here from Kalash Jacob?
Yeah. I mean, it's because I think it's a subjective metric that we're using, kind of regardless. And so there's it's hard to tussle with even just personally, but I think everybody's subjective thought on what would make how to write a good poem is probably subjectively. I've heard some poems out there, right? So we've all heard poems out there that were like, that's not our favorite, but it's like there's people out there that love it. So
yeah, and I think I think there was a time where I definitely would define poetry as like good and bad and things like that. But nowadays it's like, if you're resonating with an audience, who am I to tell you? If you find people that are with your work, I might not rock with it, but if they do.
This is exactly what Anakin was trying to teach Obi-Wan. He was just like, hey, listen, there is no good and bad. It's just I'm out here killing younglings. So just don't harsh my mellow, man. Just let me go out here and do my thing as Darth Vader. I felt like that was relevant. It felt relevant to this kind of
like a Darth Vader like thing. Like
yeah.
Like, we could just make.
Poor guy.
I wonder, like, if you took like Darth Vader's like his breath, but if you reversed it, what that would sound like. That might be interesting. It might be. I might have to play around with that after.
Might have to do that.
Our next response. There's still time to respond, by the way, if you guys catch this. This is from Threads.
Yeah.
Oh, she told me how to pronounce her name once. Amelia?
Amelia?
I forget. I'm sorry, mispronouncing your name.
Amelia.
I know it. But if you're just getting started, try focusing on the smallest details of a single moment. Narrow in on sensory. It's like taste, feel, sight, metaphors, emitting like or as. A single word can be an entire experience. I think you captured that a lot, especially like in haiku. Tell us only what we need to know to see and to feel what you do. Yeah, I think that's definitely. I think a lot of poets have a tendency to over-explain.
Yeah.
Then forget everything I just said and write from your heart, followed by a black heart.
Done.
JH said nice. JLH. JH said nice. She said thanks.
I like that because I think ironically enough, I think she kind of said it in that first line and she kind of expounds upon it throughout the course of what is it? It's a thread, right? That's what they call it. So like throughout the course of the thread, which is just this idea that when you're just getting started, try focusing on the smallest details of a single moment, and because those are the ones that you can add detail to that actually creates a higher resolution of the moment, right? And that's what you're, in my opinion, what you should strive for is to kind of create a high resolution kind of image or feeling. And what I mean by that is like we were talking about this like last week when we were talking about describe war, right? So it's going to be really hard to describe war because you can't describe war in a 3 minute poem, right? Like you can't really aptly do it in a 3-minute poem, but you can describe an aspect of war. You can describe an effect of war, something that is maybe concentrated to a single person or maybe a family, like or like a moment or a corner of the world. And I think that's like you can really kind of create some really high resolution to that moment, because if you can have like a much larger photo, but it's gonna be really low resolution because like I can't color in all the boxes here. But if you center yourself into a moment, into a really really small window of time, then you can do some really impressive things.
Yeah, you can't hold the reader's hand too much. You have to allow them to also create aspects of the scene.
They'll also get restraining orders against you, but it's like, I thought we were holding hands.
Well, I mean,
Jerk.
in the words of Josh, Jacob, you approach it like your second kiss. I like the metaphor bit. And metaphor by omitting like or as. Again, one of my favorite definitions of metaphor. I forget who said it. It's not just a comparison without like or as. It's a comparison of two unlike things.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of times there's this fear of incorporating the strange or the unusual that you really actually need to embrace in order to get a poem at a higher level.
Yeah. So it's also, I think, because without that, you're essentially writing something that probably could have been written somewhere else by somebody else.
It most likely has been.
And most likely has been. I mean, and even if you go the other route and you're trying to be like, it's less likely, but it still has some likelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, if I'm trying to decide which direction to go, I'm going to try to make the most unique work of art that I can.
Yeah. Speaking of pronouncing names, Calistoga. Or is it Calistoga? Where's the stress?
Calistoga.
Calistoga. Calistoga. Thank you for letting us know how to say your name.
Appreciate it.
That's very helpful. Moving on. And of course, if you guys have other tips and things that you would say for writing good poetry, let us know. K-Talk says, be vulnerable, transparent. Genuine emotional honesty is more interesting and moving and concealing feeling behind confusing metaphor or language. So that's kind of a tricky one, I think, because I think a lot of poets think they're achieving emotional honesty by just kind of airing out all the like dirty laundry and things that are happening to them.
Yeah. That, something that's interesting, like me and you talked about this, like and it's been some years, but that, like, I think we were at this open mic and this poet, they were doing a poem, and it was essentially like how, like, essentially, and I don't want to go into like kind of the content of the poem because I don't want it to be like obvious, but essentially they were getting into like how terrible their parents are and like how like horrible their parents are, and like as they're going through the poem, it's like, and to be clear, like, the person is like our age, like probably like a little bit older than us, and so it's like they're like how horrible and terrible like their parents are and stuff like that. But it's also like they don't pay any rent and they live with their parents, and like they're driving their parents' car and stuff like that. So it's like there's a range of like, well, we're talking about emotional honesty. Emotional honesty is actually really interesting because if somebody were to say like I'm this, I'm like this kind of really and I'm flawed in ways that people don't just try to admit. Like, people are like, man, I care too much. Like, like, yeah, okay, man. All right. You that's your biggest, like, my biggest flaw is just like I always do for people before myself. I'm like, oh man, you're so tortured. But no, I think that, man, like the most compelling people are the people that you can actually relate to, and you can actually see a version of kind of a thorn in the flesh. Like, you can actually really get a sense of what this person is doing wrong, or how this person is wrong, or how this person is compulsively wrong, right? Like, maybe they have something about them that they're always going to be tortured with, or they're just torturing themselves with. So, yeah, the honesty part is kind of, and maybe that's like a personal work thing, but I think that if you have the same issue that all of the other poets in the room have, which is, I'm just such a good person and this world doesn't let me to be a good person all the time, and man, how hard is that when all you want to do is just be a superhero and people aren't letting you be a superhero, then yeah, maybe there's something deeper there.
Just want to give a quick shout out. They made it. Alicia, thanks for being here. Yeah. Don't understand Threads or Twitter.
That's fine.
I really don't understand. I have no idea how Twitter works. I'll be honest. I just never jumped in, and now it feels too late. And
because it's not even Twitter anymore. It's like X. So it's like,
yeah,
it's like, oh man, I just want to see what it's about, and you're going into a whole other pool.
I love like news articles are still like they'll say X formerly Twitter, X formerly Twitter. Like when does that end? Like is that how it's always gonna?
I mean, it'll end at some point because I feel like it's. I think that it takes it was Twitter for a really long time, so it's going to take a little while for the brand to really fully transition. But it's part of it. I'm sure one day we'll be looking back like, oh, look at X. Like, remember it used to be Twitter.
I mean, I think
good old times.
One of the interesting things I heard about that, I promise we'll get back to poetry, was like just based on everything else that Elon does, like like SpaceX and like all the other like things like he just kind of like adds X to. It would have made just more sense to just do like Twitter X because that would have actually fit on brand.
I mean, maybe, but it's the only reason why I would say it's not on brand is because the other things he created.
That's true. So,
you know what I mean?
It's like debatable, but okay, fine.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get on Elon's best, but yeah, it's just yeah, but like the other because the other things that are associated with X, like he created, it makes sense for it to be like okay, like those things. Whereas Twitter was like okay, if the front name is already somebody else's entire brand that has a whole lot of weight to it, then you probably gotta.
I got you. I think actually speaking of brand, this actually ties to a point that you mentioned as well. I forget what the exact point was, but I forget. Did we talk about like in terms of our own writing? And actually, I think this kind of ties into our argument a little bit to a degree as well. I'm gonna try to bring everything together. It's gonna be hard. But how to write good poetry is thinking about. Yeah, I know I'm going to get backlash on this, I know. But, like, thinking about, in terms of poetry, what do you want to be known for with your poetry? Like, what do people, like, associate? Because the reality is you're not going to write, you might say you write about everything, but there's always going to be things that you don't actually touch on. There's going to be other things that you do touch on more frequently. I think it's very natural in writing to embrace, that's probably one thing I would say is embrace your obsessions. If you find that, man, I keep writing. Like when my grandmother passed away, for years, I just wrote grandma poems. I just wrote a bunch of dead grandma poems, just over and over and over again. God bless your zombie bones, grandma.
Your zombie bones? What? Oh my. I'm sorry, Jess Grandma. Listen, I am not associated. If you're upset, if you turn vengeful and become a real zombie.
But the reality is, like, your writing's going to take on kind of an identity. It's going to want to focus on certain things, and I think you want to actually embrace those things, and I think that's okay. And I was listening to Chris Stowe give a talk, and one of the things that he really advocates for is trying to find out what is kind of like your 2-word like personal brand. And a lot of times, and this also ties into this aspect of, this is all tying together so perfectly. This ties in this aspect of being vulnerable and transparent in the sense of the 2-word brand that you want to be kind of thinking about for yourself, for your writing, for your approach to everything. Hello also to Garage Poets Open Mic. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Beantown's in the house.
Did you guys have your open mic last week?
Yeah, tell us how your open mic went.
Did it go? Was it good?
Tell us in the chat. But when you're thinking about this, you actually want to try to think of like an area of weakness for yourself. Yeah. So, for instance, for Christo, what he identifies as, he calls himself an introvert. But he's like, okay, how can I reinvent this and turn it into a positive? And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to call myself a loud introvert. So like he has ideas he's keeping to himself normally, but he's working to convey them to other people. So he understands that, yes, his own personality type tends more introverted. He doesn't get that energy from people, but he knows he has things to give to others. So he adds that loud. So trying to think about, if you had to give your own kind of 2-word personal brand for your writing. Now we got zombie. I did not write a zombie poem about my grandmother. To be clear,
are you saying zombie poems like he's writing poems about zombies, or there's zombies that are just writing poems about anything?
I think it's about my grandmother.
Think you're
her zombie bones. I've not written a zombie poem about my grandmother yet. She might appear in like zombies making cobbler or something like that. It's gonna happen. 6 poets. Hey, 6 poets.
I don't know if I
It's
would
worth
trust
5
that
poets.
cobbler.
You know, and you're making change for people. It's not about. We didn't talk about events a whole other. I don't. There's already a lot of tangents going on right now. I can't address everything.
Focus in, Garage Poets. Forget all the questions that we asked you earlier.
Can't answer everything. But yeah, it's like thinking about taking something that you have, and so like one of the things I was trying to like think of something for myself, and this actually kind of ties to like I mentioned earlier. I'm really interested in helping poets kind of develop their work, to the point where sometimes I know I can be kind of overbearing and aggressive with it, because my assumption is that like I am completely fine like working with someone, or like just like talking through people's ideas to help them arrive at a place for their poem, and not even necessarily inserting my own ideas, but really trying to understand your own thinking and what you want to do and things like that, and seeing, are you satisfied with how things are going? Is it doing what you want it to do in your work? And not everyone wants that. You know, some people just aren't interested in that development aspect, you know?
Yeah.
And so one potential 2-word brand I'm kind of playing with right now is taking this idea of like perfectionism and like really wanting like kind of like the perfect form, not only for myself, but for others, but also at the same time being satisfied with what we already have. It's like, you know, I accept where I am right now, and I accept where other people's pieces are and their work is right now, and I'm happy with it, but I'm also like wanting to take it to the next level at the same time, if that makes sense. It's kind of contradictory, but I don't think it has to be. And so my 2-word brand, the one I'm thinking about right now, is like a content like perfectionist. So it's like, you know, I'm satisfied with where I am, but I want to push things further. I can get. Yes, those are. Yes, that can write. Sorry, Matthias has been struck with
I just had an idea.
and we have to write something down. While Matthias is doing this really quick, Garage Poets Open Mic again. If you're in Boston, definitely be sure to check them out. Garage Poets Open Mic. Let us know again your dates. I forget what days you are and what time. We would love to come. Yo, you want to take a trip to Boston sometime?
Dude, you know what? We
That's a
should.
business expense, by the way.
We should, because
Put that on the
also
card.
we could go. There's like open mics up there that one of the people that is part of the program that I'm doing right now, like they're up there and they host them. So
All right. Well, sounds like we might take a business expense trip. They're online. Okay. So drop some links. Like, do you have a link?
Yeah.
For that? Like, promote your thing, sir.
tell us about it now.
Okay. But Matthias, you were very anxious to write something down.
No, that's for. Well,
It's for later?
it was just an idea. I feel like one of the things about that I'm learning about myself when it comes to ideas is that like I am really bad at being like, oh, I'm gonna remember that later, because then like 3 hours later I'll be like, there was like a really good thing that I was thinking about. I don't know. Maybe like at some point in the future, if we're talking about the idea that I just now wrote down, you can reference like this exact moment on the podcast where I was like, oh, wait a minute, look at this. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so the idea that I don't know. I think that you're trying to push people toward this ideal, or you're trying to push like to something that they at least express that they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then not a lot of people recognize that, oh, like the thing that I want isn't just the poet that's over here traveling and doing all this other, like I don't go from who I am right now to that person tomorrow, right? And I think that's like something that you recognize. You recognize that in poetry. You recognize that in really any field.
Right.
I would say especially creative fields, because I think it creates I think it really creates like a really high amount of envy between the people that are, I want to say not the lower, but there's just the people that aren't doing things to like the level of like traveling and speaking engagements and stuff like that, because you feel like the only difference is how good you are, right? In a sales field, you can make sense of somebody just being, you know, if somebody has a lot more money and stuff like that, because especially if you're selling the same thing, it's like I don't sell as much, so it's like I can take away a lot of the like kind of the envy, because I'm more thinking about like kind of the pragmatic, like this is, but this does not equal this.
Hmm.
Whereas I think a lot of times in poetry or really any kind of creatively subjective field, it's like you don't really think about that. Like a lot of times you're only thinking like if I'm good, then I should be there. If I'm
Hmm.
good, then I should be
The
here.
craft, the
Um,
skill will take me.
yeah, which is again one of the other things that Diversus focuses on, and that Jeff puts a really high emphasis on, is that like most of the conversations that we're talking about aren't even about how good your poems are. Like
It's the
that's
assumption.
it's yeah,
It's
but
the assumption.
it's the assumption, but it's not the conversation, because the
Yeah.
conversation isn't oh, are your poems good? Well, then how can we work? I mean, that's a part
Yeah.
of like other conversations, but kind of the bulk of it is like, okay, what are you doing with your good poems? What are you doing
exactly.
with
That's it.
your poetry as a career? What are
Mhm.
you doing with the aspects of your poems? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
are these scented?
They shouldn't be. I wouldn't. I wouldn't
They
like
shouldn't
sniff
be.
it like a lot. But
Are you also seeing that rainbow in this room?
This is a family show.
This family show that
Family
gets
show.
cuts on at 9:30.
Yep.
Please watch us, families.
Guys, if you're looking for an online open mic, the Garage Poets Open Mic, they have a Facebook group with the same name, so you can find them on
Yeah.
Facebook. Check them out, please, please, please. If you're looking for an online place to showcase your work.
Are you guys hosted from a garage? Is it like inside of a
Yeah,
garage?
what's up with your name? Hey, you. What's up with your name?
In the UK, you'd be the garage poets.
Yeah.
That's how they say it.
Sorry.
Bloody hell.
You go to UK once.
I know the language, man. I'm local. Nice. Oh, they are hosted in a garage.
Um,
That's good. Hey, that's good branding right there. It's like you're in a garage and like you're the garage poets.
That's like, what's the show in Dayton? Don't they like the one that's in the old taxi garage or whatever?
Yeah. What is it? The Yellow Cab Tavern?
Yeah, that's it. But that's the Dayton Poetry Slam.
Yeah.
Yeah, missed
They
opportunity.
could miss opportunity. If you guys are in Dayton right now, just hear
Yeah.
look what the garage poets doing.
Got you.
Kind of follow in line.
Oh, one guy actually says it like that. You're not the first. Someone else is doing the garage poets. But go
Hey,
on.
tell him I said hello, bruv.
Oh, please. What's it?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
What's it gonna-
Yeah, that was deserved. I earned that.
Yes, you did. Other thing I wanted to say about being vulnerable. So I mentioned earlier, it's not enough. Being vulnerable isn't just like I broke up with my partner, or this person is like I hate my boss or I hate my job. Like this isn't necessarily. You're telling people, but that's not the type of honesty we're really talking about, because there's not really much like exploration of it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to go deep. It takes time. A lot of times we have blind spots that don't allow us to fully get into
Yeah.
the thing. So that's really hard to navigate as well. A lot of times having another person to kind of talk through it to kind of understand.
Yeah.
Or being like just super, super patient with the piece. When I was working with Greg Pardlow at Kalu, one of the things that he does, he takes, because he used to be an alcoholic, so he takes a lot of like his AA training and applies it to poetry, and that's how he's able to kind of get to some of those deeper levels and things like that. Honesty isn't just something that you sit down and write it and you get it in like 5 minutes. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah. Honestly, and I think honesty in poems very rarely has you coming out as like the good guy. And I think that's like that's a hard, it's like a hard thing to swallow, because I think that ideally you navigate all these spaces correctly, and you navigate all your friendships and relationships the right way. And I think that, man, there's a lot of poets that I think because of who they are, maybe as like activists or what have you in their community, it's like they don't really give themselves, and again, it's a luxury because it's not even a luxury. They don't give themselves the space to really truly examine like their faults and like the way that they process the world. Because they're like, I'm on a mission, and so a lot of times like their poetry kind of follows that through on that in that respect. And man, another poet that I don't know, she's not in here right now. Johnny Dawkins, that was in here a while ago.
AJ Ane?
AJ Ane, yeah,
Oh, man,
yeah,
she's
AJ Ane.
she's
But
dope.
no, she has this poem, man, and she's been kind of on this kick for a couple years now, where she kind of made it. She is kind of high up there in like kind of the poetry world as far as like gigs and the poetry foundation and stuff like that. So but she has these poems that kind of really examine the relationship between like her and her mom, and it's interesting because I never really thought about this because I wasn't really in the poetry community when I was younger, right? So I never lived through this as a youth, but being like I'm taking all the traumas or my perceived traumas and I'm putting them in front of thousands of people, and I'm doing these poems over and over again at these different open mics and stuff like that. And so it's like it's so interesting because like she examines like the thought of, hey, I'm doing all these poems and I get scholarships for my poems and I'm getting awards for my poems, I'm getting money from my poems, I'm doing all these things, but all the poems that I'm doing are like essentially attacking the core members of my family, right? Or a core member. And so it's it's such an interesting, I think, angle to take when we're talking about like honesty, and we're talking about like, what does it look like for you to actually really be honest, because most poets would not get to that turn in honesty where they're like, man, like they would get to the point where my mom's wrong, my dad's wrong, this person's wrong, look what everybody did to me. And then I'm like, man, but like they are your family, you know what I mean? And you do love them, and not only do you love them, but you depend on them. Like you are needed, like they are needed by you, and they fulfill things in your life that like it would be impossible for you to like to make it through, and they allow so many things for you, and it's like you kind of rise up in the ranks by attacking them because family trauma gets snaps. So it's just, again, and then that was just kind of the closest example that I can kind of really access when it comes to like just this thought of like maybe the honesty that you're trying to bring out is not the one that makes you feel like you're the victor and you're the winner. Like maybe it's the one where you're like, man, I was wrong for this infraction and this infraction.
Which kind of leads me to the question: do you think there's such a thing as a reliable narrator? I argue no. I think every narrator is unreliable. If it's based off a human narrator.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also kind of depends on what I would maybe consider to be reliable. Like,
It's fair.
like, well, because I'm not trying to say to just be facetious. Like, I'm saying that to like if my niece comes to me and she's mad at like one of her sisters, and she's just like, she did this, that, and the third. It's like, do I believe that everything she's telling me right now is like 100% the truth as far as like, she says like, my sister did this. I'm like, I'm sure there's another story that she's going to tell me that, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on that maybe you're leaving out. So it's like, are you an unreliable narrator in that there's a possibility that the worldview that you put in front of me is colored by your wants and your desires and what you're trying to get out of this space, or even what you're trying to get out of telling me? Absolutely. Yeah, like, so absolutely exactly. Not 100%. But like, yeah. But are you a reliable narrator in that if I come to the table knowing all that, do I still get what I think I would need out of this narrator? Honestly, yeah.
It's, you can trust it. I can trust people. I trust my friends.
This is Jeff's first human moment. I trust people. People are nice. People are fine.
I trust people.
You're a person.
No, like I trust people, but I also understand that in certain situations, information might get left out or embellished or things like that. Like it's really interesting just reading poems and seeing moments where the narrator really, or the speaker really kind of starts revealing what their motivations are, intentionally or unintentionally.
Oh, for sure.
Or like the details they choose to leave out, or the details that they choose to focus on, or like the details that they choose to attach descriptions to versus not attach descriptions to. Like you learn so much about a person just by the things that they choose to identify. You
a
know
lot
what I mean?
because the thing is, a lot of poems are like, I would say, a journal entry slash one way therapy session for a lot of people. So a lot of times they're going to get on stage and they're going to just be telling you, you know, what they believe and what they think about a situation or what have you, and cue into these for the relationship poems. Like see relationship poems.
See, even anytime anyone talks to you about a relationship, in real life,
I'm just like, yeah. So, man, okay. I don't want to say I don't heckle.
That not
I don't
unreliable narrative, right? In this
Hear me out. Because I don't think what I'm doing is heckling. Here's the thing. I'm paying attention. I'm just reacting to things that I'm paying attention to. And
as
a lot of
who stands next to you at the back of open mics, making the same comment.
yeah, Jeff. Man, but which is all just to say that, like,
don't invite us to your open mic. You don't want us. You don't want us at your show.
But no, there's always times where like somebody's like doing like their relationship poems, and like it's somewhere in the middle. I'm like, I need to hear this guy's side because I don't know about this, man. What you're saying right now, it's seems a little sketchy. We might need to hear the other person's side.
Some interesting comments about the narrator stuff. Garage Post. Mike says there are narrators that I think are reliable, even though I know no one ever gets it right. All right. So I would still call that narrator unreliable, and I don't think an unreliable narrator is a bad thing. I think it's a human. It makes me easier. It's easier for me to connect with you.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
I think it's kind of like the whole like people trying to let's here. You know what a perfect example is? Like politics. When people are like, I'm unbiased when it comes to this. Just give me this scenario, and they're like, you're not. You're really not. You know what I mean? Like the only way you could be unbiased is if you're like Bubble Boy and you never walked outside that. Like, and maybe you're not even then, right? But like you're not gonna really be unbiased. The thing that I would want is that you can express your biases openly and freely. And then that way I can perceive them and I can do whatever I want to do with the information.
And acknowledging that, like, sometimes you'll read the poem where the speaker actually starts acknowledging the fact that they are unreliable, you know?
Yeah.
Callisto. Now I'm like overthinking their name. I'm going to pronounce this right. Hang on, let me find it. Hang on. Calistoga. There it is. Calistoga Kid.
I want to embrace the unreliable narrator idea. That could be fun.
The thing is, every poem you've already written is
you've already embraced it.
But
it's already yours.
On that note, once you understand that your speaker is unreliable, then it becomes even more fun because then you can decide how much do you want to amplify it or how much do you want to try to like conceal it, like quote unquote conceal it.
Well, because you can stop trying to pretend to be a reliable narrator.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times you're either omitting or you're trying to kind of censor yourself or do whatever you can to make it seem like you're not, like you're like you are a reliable narrator. I'm like, you're probably not. You can probably just lean into it.
I don't like the sequels, but that is actually one concept of just the latest Star Wars trilogy that I thought was interesting, especially in I forget the name of the second one, where they showed the different perspectives with Kylo Ren and like the burning of the Jedi Temple. Like they had Luke's perspective and then they had Kylo's perspective and kind of like that's where we start. If there's anything interesting to people from that movie, that is at least one thing that I felt was a little bit interesting, like seeing the different perspectives, you know. Yeah. I'm sorry to send this all back to them.
Just forget it.
but yeah, like embrace it, lean into it. And that's actually probably another tip, like how to write good poetry. That's another tip I would say is to understand what you're actually, do your first draft, see what's going on, and then ask yourself, how can I amplify everything or the central things to like 11?
Yeah.
Like, how can I just turn everything up?
But something that actually, now that you bring up the Star Wars idea, the Star Wars paradigm, I think, and this is just kind of completely separate, but well, it's not completely separate from the topic, but it's on topic, but separate from what we're talking about at the moment. The idea that your payoffs have to have setups. I think what happens a lot of times in people's poems is like they at the end there's this miraculous, amazing other thing that happened that wasn't happening for the rest of the poem, that it had nothing to do with the rest of the poem, but you were like, I need to add this into my poem, and I think that it takes away from theme. It drives now your audience has to focus on this new paradigm that you set up. And the reason why I was thinking about that in connection with Star Wars is if you've seen the sequel trilogy, which if you haven't seen it so far, like, don't.
Be careful. Be careful. Garage Bros said they enjoyed those movies.
Did you? Oh, come
we ain't
on.
trying to fight.
Well, on our other podcast where we just talk about Star Wars, Star Wars and Hey Arnold, we can have that conversation. But yeah, no. So in the sequel trilogies and at the beginning, and hear me out, Garage Bros. At the near the beginning, like they're just like they don't have it. The main enemy in the rest of them. Also, spoiler alert. I give you guys a second to do what you need to do. But spoiler alert for the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. So essentially at the beginning of the third installment, because their main antagonist that you thought was the main antagonist for all three of them, because he died in the second one, they didn't have
anticlimactically.
Incredibly, like, it was the most anticlimactic thing that I've seen in a very long time. But because he died in the second one, it's like I'm like, what am I doing in the theater? Like right. And then in the previews, they're like, it's so corny. Somehow Palpatine returned. And when I tell you that when he says somehow Palpatine returned, that's the explanation for Palpatine coming back. That is it. They're just telling you that he came back. And so now you have all this character build up for the past two movies. And one of them, Snoke didn't really have a lot of character because you didn't know anything about him except for he's just this ghoul that wants Kylo Ren to be powerful.
Half of the time in the movies, he was a hologram.
Yeah. It's like I don't know about his wants. I don't know about I don't know about the reasons why he wants things or anything. Like, I don't know anything about his motivation. So again, we can get into that later on, which is all just to say that was a really good example. Like, the reason why Star Wars fans felt so frustrated by that move. Cheated. Cheated.
I felt cheated.
I didn't really. I think by that installment, I was just like, we're getting whatever we're getting. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's
learned helplessness is a thing.
But yeah, like, because the reason why we were so frustrated is because it's like Palpatine is a historic and really great antagonist. Like, if you think about it, a lot of people don't like the prequels. I understand the purpose of the prequels, and I think the prequels are better than the sequels for sure. But I understand the purpose of the prequels, which I'm like, if you think about Palpatine's entire trajectory, you think about who he is to the story, and you think about the things that are dependent on Palpatine for the story, all those things are disassembled once you just can say, oh, somehow Palpatine's back. Remember that the big bad that we are all really scared of, that we haven't even mentioned for the past two movies? That guy's right back here, and he's doing things, and you know what I mean. So it's all, it's like, it's really, he wasn't even. Here's the thing: he wasn't even called Palpatine. In the first run of the movies in 4, 5, and 6, he wasn't even called Palpatine. So it's like, why do they know him as Palpatine? For no reason, right? So it's all just to say that it's just like, huh?
There are many issues.
There's a ton of issues. So it's just to say that what you pay off at the end, because a lot of people, they already have, like, when you get to the end of the poem, you're like, man, I had this idea that it could also all end this way. And a lot of times, because there's no there's no connection between it and the beginning of your poem. It's going to throw your audience off, and it's going to ruin the sense of completion that maybe you're building up to.
Speaking of endings, too, another point I would add is how to write good poetry. You better have a killer last line. Your last line better be good. It better be punchy. You better have some impact to it. We talk about a lot. If you're interested in publishing, that's one area they're going to look at. They're going to look at your first line. They're going to look at your title. They're going to look at last line. If you're doing slam or open mics, same thing. What you leaving people with. A lot of times when people have those weak endings, a lot of times that's a sign that the poem's not done. That a lot of times, we talked about this before. I mean, the endings of poems are often places where you finally get to the thing that the poem's actually going to, that's like, we actually start learning about what the poem's really about, and then you hide. And then it's, you see it all the time. There's so many signs of that. We've talked about in previous episodes before. A lot of people would benefit from taking their current ending and just trying to write for an extra 20 minutes just to see what else the poem's really trying to say.
Yeah.
Roses resonates with what you said. They fell into your trap.
Yes. Yes, let the hate flow through.
Yes. In the words of the apparently immortal.
The dark side of the force leads to many possibilities which some may consider unnatural.
Hey, look at this guy. This guy sent us a thing. Okay, Joshua. Tell your story like no one's going to read it, but you. Oh, that changes things. Okay, tell your story like no one's going to read it, but you. And imagine yourself as the best artist in the world.
So, like, kind of imagine it like, wait.
Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
That was never
okay.
then.
Oh, here it is. I found it.
It was like a figment of all of our collective imaginations.
Josh, I'll let you explain yourself. I'm just going to stare into the camera until Joshua explains himself. What do you mean by this, Joshua?
Tell us what you mean.
Why did you write this?
We need to know.
Why did you write this? Why?
And another thing about Star Wars, I'm joking. But we could really have a podcast about.
We could.
We could do that.
One of the things that strikes me about this line: tell your story like no one's going to read it, but you. I need to think about that. I think I get the sentiment. I'm debating if I agree with it.
Yeah.
Do I agree when I'm right? No one's going to read this.
I think the thing that I'm struggling with is maybe like the second part where I'm like, just imagine that the person that is going to read it is like the best poet in the world, like, or the best artist in the world. Because I'm like, I don't think that in the same way that if I'm making a film, I'm not trying to make something that, and maybe some people are, so I'm not taking this way, but I think the best movies are the ones that aren't made for the critics.
Yeah.
Because we talked about Rotten Tomatoes here before, which is just like a lot of times the critics' review on Rotten Tomatoes isn't reflective of kind of the general consensus of the film. A lot of times they're antithetical. A lot of times they're looking at a movie and like, this is terrible, this, that. But it's like your audience loved it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that trying to assess it as like the best artist in the world, maybe I would more so, and this is just me thinking here. So again, it could be completely different for everybody in particular, but I would imagine that if everybody that is familiar with my work and that likes my work heard this, they would also really love this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's some other turns that you can make that are like, yeah, like maybe I want to do something else. But I would just, that's how I would maybe wrap my head around it. But
we got some thoughts on Rotten Tomatoes. If you have
they just go bad so quickly.
So if I'm a person read my work, I'll be more honest.
Oh, I get. Okay, I get.
I wonder if that's true. I feel like in some ways gives you more permission to hide. It's really hard to avoid your own blind spots if it's just you. It's really, really hard. That's why there's blind spots. The mind is a powerful thing. If your mind does not want you to see something, your mind will literally not let you see it.
That's why I have traffic court later on.
That car hit me.
I didn't even see that guy. Okay.
But on the other hand, I feel like there's almost this issue of fear. So like this, like if I'm writing a poem about my family and I'm like, I don't want my family to read this. If it's just me, that might make it easier. I could see that aspect to it. I think the only thing I'm just nervous about is I am nervous that it doesn't fully allow us to get to deeper levels of exploration. That's the only thing I'm potentially nervous about. And I might be nervous for no reason, but that's something that I'm kind of...
That's fair. I think it's kind of like the... what is it? Like the picking your nose fallacy? Like the thing where it's like, if you're around people, you're not going to pick your nose because you're told from when you're a kid, like, not to pick your nose. But, like, if you're by yourself, people pick their nose by themselves. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is like... It's just like this idea that it's like, you know, you're willing to kind of let some of those inhibitions kind of go if it's like just you and yourself.
The inhibitions, but that's kind of playing with like ego kind of stuff where it's like things that you deep down really want. You want to pick your nose with that.
I need it. I need it. This podcast is just an hour and a half interruption from me and my nose.
Versus if you're digging into like a poem that's handling like a traumatic sort of experience and you're trying to unpack that, your mind doesn't want you to do that. Your mind's going to literally fight against you to prevent you from doing that. That's the whole reason why it's repressed in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
You know? It's like I see it from both sides, and I think Joshua does as well. I get the intention. Again, they say, think of it like a diary. You air it all out because no one's supposed to see it. So there's that kind of sense of privacy. But the privacy is, I won't say like it's a false sense of privacy, but there's a finite amount of privacy. It's not limitless privacy.
I think the interesting thing about it, when you think about people's diaries, is that a lot of times, like, if you go back and you reference like your old journals or your old diaries, it's like people are typically like kind of really embarrassed at the way they thought. But a lot of times they're not really embarrassed at the way they thought. They're really embarrassed at how they expressed what they really thought. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh. They hated this person. They hated this person. They couldn't understand this. But like with retrospect or with hindsight, you're able to be like, whoa, hold on. Like I was dealing with all these other issues which manifested in like hatred of these people. So like even the version of you that thinks you're just talking to yourself is really kind of guarded by, you know, the version of you that's like, yeah, well, hold on. There's a lot of stuff for you to deal with. Let's not deal with them now.
Sounds like we're unreliable narrators.
Yeah, well, speak for yourself. Picking my nose after this.
Then F. Martinez says, I find this good or bad poetry thing to be difficult to define. You and me both, Dan. Poetry is so subjective to a poet's life, philosophy, experiences. I'm afraid of doing that thing I did earlier. Perspective. Poets and poems are never going to resonate with everyone. I don't have any disagreements to this point. True. Beauty, good or bad, is in the eye of the beholder. And one man's garbage can definitely be another man's treasure.
Cliche, I know. Yeah. You got it.
I'll direct you to last week's or no.
Just see the YouTube video that went up.
If words written have elicited response, then I deem it did its job. If it also put in my mind or deepened me, even better. This actually brings me to, I know a lot of poets are going to zone out because I'm going to mention the M word. Marketing. Business. Business and poetry. Never shall they meet. Boo that. Yeah.
A little.
But also a little warning. But also, this might actually be helpful. So,
And a little laughter because
We
I'm here.
understand.
We're having a good time. These buttons light up. Can I not push them?
let me bring it up because I got distracted by buttons. Okay. So one of the things that can happen when you're working with clients, or you're in talks with a new client, is that, especially if you're offering a service and they're nervous. You know, there's a money exchange. You know, they don't just want to give you money. They're nervous. How do I know? So they might actually literally ask you the question, like, how will I know that I'm going to get the result?
Yeah.
You know? And the most powerful response you can give to that question, this is again based off of dating experience from Christo, and I forget his name. I'll think of his name later. The most powerful response to that question is if you have this sort of situation where you're doing something to someone, but they're nervous before moving forward with you, and they ask you, you know, how will I know if I get the result, or how do we measure this? And the answer to that question is, I don't know. How do you measure this? How will you know if you get the result? Because this is such a subjective question. So, like, we determine success. When you make a book, you determine how successful your book is. No one else does. You do, because you're deciding what the show is. So, for instance, earlier, Garage Poets Open Mic was talking about, for instance, it's true for events. So, like, for instance, if you host a poetry show and you get upset because there's 3 people there and you have 20 seats and you get upset, that's your choice to get upset, because you have determined success for you, whether you admit it or not, that you're going to fill this space.
Yeah.
Or if you make a poetry book and you get upset because no one buys it, that's on you, because the measurement that you set up for yourself for success for the book was you wanted a certain number of sales.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think a lot of writers don't even have a concrete number of what that number is. They just want lots of sales. But then you ask them, what does that look like?
Over what, like, span of time?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many factors, right? So like, it's just sitting down and thinking about, how are you determining success for anything? For a relationship, for how many things you sell, for an event, like whatever it is, for anything in life, like, you determine what the metrics are. So in this case here, if the words written have listed a response and I deem it as his job. Okay, so we have a measure of success. Okay. If my poem elicits a response, now I don't know what that response is. So if that response is like, I guess that's a success. Or if that response is, I don't care. Well, that's also a response. But I don't know if you value each of those equally.
Okay, so Kanye has a line where he says, y'all don't speak from the heart, y'all all frontin'. Everybody feels a way about K, but at least y'all feel something. Like that to me, yeah, I think that to me is like it was really profound. And there's other ways to say it. I'm sure thousands of people have said the same thing kind of in different ways. But it's just to say that, like, yeah, like this idea that that the reaction to your work or the thing that you're doing is always supposed to be like this positive, like, yeah, great, like, amazing, like, because the thing is, like, that's not even always the thing that traffic sales, right? Like that, like, people aren't always purchasing things with the heart posture of, oh man, that was so beautiful, that was great. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm disgusted by that, I need to read more. You know what I mean? Like, so you just never really know what I mean, there could be different reasons or different motivations behind, like, people kind of doing different things.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times we're focused too heavily on either like happiness, like either happiness or just like pleasantry, and not enough on like sometimes it's spectacle, sometimes it's frustration, sometimes it's anger that's driving them to need to maybe not even buy your book, maybe just follow you on social media. Maybe now it's like I just need to hear what they're gonna say next. Like I know you've probably heard of like the term like hate watching, like where people are like, man, like I hate this thing so much I just have to watch the entire thing. It's like that happens to me too.
I mean, you see that a ton in like modern art. I was reading an article. Actually, read art. I just saw the headline about one exhibit. To enter the exhibit, they put like two nude people like at the entrance, like standing like face to face to each other. And to enter the exhibit, you had to like literally like walk between them. So like. But
suffice to say, I didn't go back to that Dave and Buster's. I said I'll take my games elsewhere.
But that you're playing on the emotion. What a lot of modern art, what are they doing? Like they're like contemporary art, like they're trying to get people angry. Oh, I'm going to install the gold urinal as my exhibit, and people are like, this isn't art. Like. If people get that reaction, like if you do a poem and someone says this isn't a poem, good job.
You did it. And if they say get out of this place, it's an Arby's and we're closed, you're like, okay, big beef and cheddar, please. We have the meats.
The reality is, look, negative emotions have a stronger impact on the mind psychologically than positive ones. For sure. So I think. Just all of that from Dana's point about listener response. The other thing is, I would just add on to this: be honest about your goals. If you say that you're okay with, I just want my poem to elicit a response, one response. Okay, that's your goal. When one person gives you a response,
you got it.
Be happy.
But and like actually like I think that's one of the other things that I think it's really important to do that I know I for sure don't do enough, which is if I have achieved something or if I've done something, like actually mark it down, like, okay, we did the thing. Now, okay, because the next step should be, how do I do this twice? How do I do this? Yeah. How do I replicate this process, or how do I expand the course of this process? And I think that's another part, I think, of being like honest about your goals, which is, okay, like if I have, like, let's say like your open mic, if you're in a city that has 30 open mics, right, throughout the course of let's say the month, let's say like some of those open mics might be on the same days, some of those open mics might be are on different days naturally, but let's just say there's a really good amount of open mics kind of in your area or in that window of time, and you're like, well, I want to create this other open mic that has no real definable, discernible trait, that's completely different than what the other ones are doing. Now let's think about what your goal should be. If you're like, well, the other one's happening half an hour before mine and it's on the other side of town, and again, let's say I'm not doing anything particularly special with my open mic, except for just being like, this is my open mic and I got some other cool jazzy name or something like that. Like, your expectations in that space shouldn't be like you haven't really established yourself outside of them, like a top of the market. So like, okay, maybe you could realistically be like, well, I went out to multiple places and I got 10 people that said yes, they were coming to open mic. That means you probably got 2 people coming to your open mic. Maybe, all right? And
2
so
it's pretty good. If 10 people say they're coming, 2 people come, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And so if you set out 30 chairs, because now you're in your head, you're thinking, well, each of those 10 people, they're going to tell 10 people, and they're going to tell all these other people. So you've created a construct in your head for how you think things are supposed to wind up. And I think it's going to lead you to disappointment afterwards. Yeah. And so just really kind of preparing for you to get the exact response that you've actually prepared for.
Yeah. Yeah. So accept, like, setting goals, but also accepting what those goals are. Some other points came in I just want to highlight on. Alicia's saying, I started reading poetry with family members. Oh, she brave. I did read a raw poem about said family member that got shared to them. They challenged you to write. Good. Okay. Challenge you to write another poem. You haven't yet, but honest, that's great. Honesty and leaning on your family to help you before you go to open mics could help build confidence if you feel like your poetry is bad or amateur. If you're in the right family setting, yes. If you're in the wrong family setting,
Man. Oh man, no, I can think about. I think about like those, American Idol when they would do those like in the audition phase, and like they would every once in a while they would like travel. They would like go to the people's families and like, oh, we've been telling Terry for years, like Terry, she's the best singer. Oh, she sings like an angel. Oh my! And everybody in the family is like, oh, she's gonna be our star. And they build her up, and then she gets on stage and she's terrible. And you're like, oh my gosh! But it's like, they're your family, so maybe for your family centers of poems, it's whatever. But yeah, depending on your family, depending
and not
on
all
who
families
your
that's supportive. Some families they're gonna be like,
and those actually might be the better ones for your poems. They're like, oh, that's terrible. It's like, okay, let me.
I mean,
let me take it back to the lab.
If the families. I don't read my poems in my family. My dad occasionally might. Hey, Dad. I don't do. My family wants to be supportive, but it's reading family poems to family is a. I don't know. It's not. You have to be careful. I think you have to be careful. You can get into. Especially if you're involving other family members, because then you get into, again, we talk about unreliable narrators. We get into, you're giving one perspective, and your perspective it might be your truth, but that might not necessarily be the truth of the other family members that are in the story either.
For sure.
So just kind of be careful. I forgot we do need an Arby's. I forgot about the Arby's stuff.
Arby's is making a return.
Arby's is coming back.
We have the meats.
We got
dun, dun, dun. They got to pay Pusha T every time they do that because that's like part of his song.
I did not know that.
The little dun dun.
That part.
Yeah.
They couldn't have made their own little thing. They had. Is it that worth it? I was not aware of that. Roses is giving a shout out. Yeah, let's give a shout out. Yeah. Shout out to Poetry Biz Network, Christoph, Mr. Jenkins. I'm currently being asked what I want to accomplish. Make a time at executing diverse poet life, dropping gems daily. Yes. I actually want to talk to Christoph. I want to do. I want to see if he wants to do a workshop talking about video podcasting.
Yeah, for sure.
And we see here. I send all mine to my wife. She's great for boosting my ego. That's good.
It's so because it's like okay, so my wife is like a really like when I'm not saying this to be like my wife is a great poet. Like I think my wife is a great poet. Like my wife is like by far a much better like and higher recognized poet than me. So like
shout out versus podcast.
Shout out versus podcast.
Poetry
like poetry podcast. Like shout out to them. But yeah, so like she's kind of a big deal, right? So I feel like it's always interesting because I'm like I'll show my wife poems and I always feel like I gotta show it to somebody else because like my wife will be like, oh, this is a great poem, but
be like that.
But I'm like, man, maybe it's not.
She will be.
Maybe it's not.
She's gonna be so nice. Yeah,
yeah. But again, her work is like
good.
We love you, Ajane.
But
shout out to Ajane.
But we can't trust you.
Oh, side note, did you know? Okay, y'all don't know this story, and apparently neither does Jeff. But the way that we found out that Tatum was on the way was Kathy did a poem,
my wife
and essentially announced it at an open mic, which I thought was really really cool. And years later, I'm telling them this story like I made it up. Like, I'm like, guys, that's what happened. You're like, are you serious? Really?
Kathy read a poem to me.
I'm trying to tell you.
Birth of our child.
I'm not crazy.
She's pregnant.
Like I was like 2 seconds away from like calling somebody else. I was like, Scott, I just need you to tell them. Need you to tell them that this was the pregnancy announcement. Okay.
I remember it now, but it took a minute because we have kids. It's you're tired. I want to try to get through these Shamily Yams, and then we'll I want to refresh because I saw I got some notifications. I want to make sure we get everyone that sent us some thoughts on how to write good poetry.
Oh yeah.
Sham with Yams said, "Don't try to write general poetry. Be specific."
Oh, I thought they were going for lieutenant poetry
or
admirable.
Corporal poetry. Colonel. Humans are very good at seeing the general in specifics and very good at seeing nothing in general. So make your poetry specific to you, to a scene, to a moment, to a place, as specific as possible.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. You know, I think we kind of covered that a little bit earlier, but yeah, it still rings true.
Yeah.
For sure.
It reminds me of I was in a workshop with Vivi Francis, and a line that she gave that's super helpful is the individual is universal. Your individual experiences allow others to enter into your individual experience and also their own. Yeah. Whereas if you stay too broad and too general, you don't actually allow anyone, including yourself, to enter the space. So, you know, when poets present poems and they're like, I'm writing for everybody, that's always a little scary because it's like, well, it's going to be hard to walk away with something from that piece. So use your specific experience. Also, I think that comes into other. That 1 sec to refresh. That covers into other areas too, like if we talk about just like poetry stereotypes, like the black poem, or or things like that, you know. And it's like, you know, like these aren't, you know, if you're a poet and you're black, your poem's black. Like it doesn't matter what you could be doing, like romantic.
Tell me, have you seen American Fiction?
I haven't. I saw the trailer. The trailer actually, it looks really. It talks about a lot of these arguments.
Oh my god, just a beautiful, beautiful film, beautiful movie, man. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You got to see that. Like
I feel like incredible. For writers, it's a pretty.
Like, it's needed because, like, exactly what you just. I think the thing that you just now said is kind of like my. I think that there is, like, because the black poetry has become a genre, because now it's like because if you make it into a genre, then it just means anybody can do it. Right? Like no matter who, literally anybody can be like, if you never show your Avi, if you never show who you actually are, and you're just publishing poems, you're like, you could write the black poem. Do you know why? Because there's certain things to it. There's I'm gonna use melanin like 20 times in the poem. I'm gonna do this. All right, like there's things that you're gonna do in the black poem, but I'm like, if all your poems are black poetry because it's like I'm a black person that's writing the poems, and it's like, yeah, like, okay, you're writing this is what you're doing.
Yeah. And obviously this carries over to, you know, like if you're gay and you write poems, doesn't matter what happens, like it's a part, like it's inherent, and there's no like monolith, you know. And I think, you know, just being someone like biracial, and I think that's something that I thought was really reaffirming, like attending like workshops like Kaolu and Kabe, is like there's just no question. It's just like, yeah. And then it's not only that, it's also like, so what? You know what I mean? Like it's not even a big, like it just is, you know.
Yeah, I think because it would be so, wouldn't it be so simple if like because okay, I'm gonna give you a little secret to slams. Okay, sometimes in slams they're not really judging the best poem. You're judging whether or not the poem hit all the right buttons that you needed to push. So if you can be like, I'm black, F Trump, reparations, they'll never stop me, Martin Luther King, Obama, black woman, black girl magic. Like, if you can hit all of the cues, people, yeah, I agree with that.
That's
so
the thing. You'll get the snaps.
You'll get the snaps. You'll get the thing. You maybe even throw in a couple R&B references just to kind of spice it up. Not even the first
3 words.
And I was talking about, can we talk? Ah, I know that song. He said the word of the day. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just, and again, I mean, no, okay, I would, maybe I should retract. That is not to say anything about people that write those poems. So if I just described your poem, I am sorry.
Line for line.
That was on accident. And that should show you the problem because that was on accident. But yeah, no, I think it's just like once you get over the fact that like, you know, you have to add in these things into your poems because like a lot of people's poems is like the same 500 words just
Yeah.
and I spilled it out and this is how the sentence goes. Spit it out and this is how the sentence goes. So
Yeah. That's 100%.
yeah, you guessed the word of the day. Yeah.
I'm gonna scroll through to see if there's other things that I missed. I believe there's not. Try to refresh this. Let's take a look. Dun, dun, dun,
Shout out to Diverses on Threads, man.
Yeah, we're doing the thing.
Doing the things.
Dun, 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 dun. Not seeing it. Okay. Let me double check this one last time. Oh, dag. You just knocked out a fourth of the poetry.
I'm sorry, Poetry World. I apologize.
I'm not.
It was not supposed. It's not supposed to come off like that. Okay, it's supposed to say that. Just. I'm gonna stop talking. Go watch American Fiction.
No, I saw the trailer. I was like, that actually might be a movie I see. In case you don't know, I just don't watch.
It's a beautiful movie, man.
Yes.
Like it's truly beautiful.
Garage Poets Open Mic. Where can I leave you a poem to pick apart?
Just hold it in the air, and then just like shake it 3 times, and then let it go, and we'll find it.
Do you want to take apart a poem next week? 2 poems.
You can do it.
Garage Poets Open Mic.
I'm not doing anything else.
If you guys want to send us a poem to take a look at next time, you can do that. We can tear apart some poems.
Dude, we could do we could take apart the poem and like you could be like on it with us, or we could take apart the poem and then we could like talk about the poem.
Well, yeah. So like,
these are things we should be talking about this in the background. I don't know why I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have said it on there. We'll talk about that.
And one thing I've been trying to do with so like, do you remember Ralph when he was on stream? Dude,
Yeah.
Amazing Winnipeg. It's one of the things I'm working on. So on the channel, we have like fine print where we analyze poems, but then we also have like first words where we actually like break down poems and edit poems. And I've been trying to do some like instead of like live stream ones, more like actually like recorded ones. So we like whiteboard sessions, and you guys can find those. So it's like printing them off on like a piece of paper and then kind of diving into it. So I already have a poem by Ralph I need to do that with. I already did with 2 other poems, but potentially we could do that with some of these too.
For sure.
So instead of doing like a live stream, maybe we could actually do like a recorded thing. Anyways, send us something, tag us, find us, social media, diversuspoetry.com, or you can send it on Instagram or something. Instructions unclear, paper still here. Send us on the floor. Yeah, if you guys want us to tear apart your poems, if you just hate your poem and you want us to, or you really like your poem and you don't want to like your poem anymore, you can send it to us and we'll take it apart.
If you guys want us to tear apart your poems like all the people that I asked out to prom, just keep it together, man.
That's good.
I've grown.
Taller.
Taller. But inside I'm smaller.
Any final point, Matthias? I know we talked about a ton of points today. Let's kind of just wrap up with one final point. So if you had to give one final point for how to write good poetry, what would your final point be? It is for everyone here too. If you have not given a point, let us know. What would your final point be for?
I think it's been kind of emphasized a couple times throughout the courses because there's a lot of really good points to kind of keep in mind. But my biggest takeaway would be write what you know and that's not to say like you can't expand or you can't expand your horizons, but I think that like when I say write what you know, I mean like write what you know like intimately, like what you can, and try to go into what you're talking about like in a very intimate, like as detailed way, as specific as you can, because again if you're just talking about, oh, this poem is about sadness, it's like that's kind of a broad term. I can't really know sadness intimately. I can know the sadness of insert this intimately. I can know the sadness of insert this intimately. So, try to be as specific as you can so that when you're writing what you know, or writing maybe you know the absence of you knowing something,
Mm-hmm.
like that's also something that you can key in on. So, yeah, that would be my
Okay.
takeaway.
Bring up some others. Garage Poets Open Mic says, when in doubt, lie. All right.
All right, it's the police handbook.
I have a bad poetry notebook that keeps my mind off of trying too hard. I like that idea. Write down all the ideas, the good, the bad, everything.
Oh, for sure.
You need to write the bad ideas to get to the good ideas.
Sometimes the ideas that you thought were bad sometimes the ideas that you thought were bad are just the ones that you were too ashamed to admit that you really liked. So like they're out there. They're in they're already in your subconscious, and you probably wrote them down because it made its way just into your consciousness, and you're like, that's a bad idea, it's a horrible idea, but like keep it in there because you never know.
You never know. My final tip would be understand that an honest poem is not the same thing as a poem as truth in fact. So in a poem, we don't have to be obligated to keep all of the actual facts of what really happened. The goal is to convey honesty in terms of how you really felt and what the situation kind of like the impacts of it and things like that.
Yeah.
But don't let the truth get in the way of that honesty, because sometimes, the saying goes, hey, in your poem, if the door in real life is a red door, but in your poem it needs to be a black door, well, then I'm making the door black every single time. Don't get caught up in the facts of what really happened, because sometimes we almost treat poems as like journal entries and like trying to capture everything as it was, when that's not really what the poem is about. And we don't want to also get overburdened by facts. Yeah. So that's my final point. Fair. Are you saying I need to give a different point? I can give a different point.
That's my point too. That's not my point too.
Artist Slate. Thank you all for joining us. Garage Poets Open Mic. Clap them up, sir. Joshua. He tells us to pronounce it. Calistoga. It's Calistoga.
Calistoga.
Kid. Calistoga Kid. There we go. Got it. Thanks for being with us. Where is she? Alicia. Alicia Shea, thank you so much for being with us as well. Hope to see all of you guys on the future stream. If you also were here with us and you did not say hi, shame on you.
What's wrong with you?
We're not going
Why
to
would you
attack
do
you
that?
that much. All these guys survived. You
Speak
can
for yourself.
too.
Not all of them survived.
Oh, no, it wasn't saying it like that. Do you have a minute to tell me how you were saying it?
I think he was saying like that's my point. Like he's agreeing. Like,
Gotcha. Okay. You want to fight it back? I will come to bar.
Jeff has like that's how like Twitter readers read a tweet. It's like, what did you say?
I got triggered last week.
I said I wanted peanut butter and jelly. You said jelly one. That's not the only preserve,
So like I said, guys, if you have poems you want us to take a part in our First Words whiteboard sessions, let us know so we can take a look at it. I'm happy to analyze it. Also, again, tomorrow, 9 p.m., every single Wednesday, we have a webinar. It's a 30-minute webinar that walks you through all the steps for how to take your writing, your work, and actually turn it into a tool you can use to help other writers, whether you want to make like a course, video course, your own webinar, things like that. It takes about 30 minutes.
Alicia. Alicia.
Alicia. What did I say? Alicia? Alicia. Where's the stress? Or is it Al? Because the Al's all caps.
I'm
Where's
pretty
the
sure it's
stress?
Alicia.
I think it's Alicia too, but that Alabama, because the AL, no. But where's it? Is AL Alaska or Alabama? Alaska's AK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Alicia,
Alicia, let us know where the stress is. And sorry if I butchered names. Anyways, so again, we have a webinar on Wednesdays. If you are interested in joining us, go to diversuspoetry.com. There'll be like a calendar thing that comes up, and you can sign up for there, and we'll let you know about all our upcoming events and things like that.
Yeah. Then also Friday at Third Way Cafe, 7:30. Bring 2 poems, or just bring 2 friends. Bring 2 friends that also have 2 poems each. Bring 2 poems that have 2 poems that have friends that are just people that you know. But you should come to Third Way Cafe on Friday because we're going to be doing poems and we're going to be hanging out and having a good time.
We will be.
You should
Yeah.
do it.
Cool. Alicia mentions that's why I was never on Twitter. So understandable.
That's fair.
Understandable. All right, guys, we will let you go into tonight. Once more, this has been Diversus Live, teaching you all things about poetry. My name is Jeff.
Matthias.
We will catch you guys either tomorrow or Friday or next week. You guys take care. Have a good day. Good night. Good afternoon. Wait. So the stress is on the owl. Right?
Nope. Al Lee. Is it?
Alicia. No, I want to get this name right. We are not leaving. No,
Wait, is it like, okay, so like phonetically would it sound like UH, like Alicia, or Al?
Garage Poets, don't interrupt. I wrote 2 poems before I wrote 2 poems, then I wrote some more. Dang it. Trying to say people's names. I'm so confused. I want to do this right. The way I'm interpreting that is the stress is on Al. Alicia. But that.
You're like a language expert, Jeff.
But if this were an IPA, it'd be so much easier.
I don't know, man.
Is she still with us? Let us know. She's like, why is this so
She might have
complicated?
gotten mad at us. And
She
then just
will.
left.
I'm sorry if you got mad at us. If you guys are still with us, that's cool. We're just
Sorry.
trying to.
We're gonna spend the next 5 hours of our lives figuring this part out. This is intensely important.
So, like, is it? I'm gonna type this out. It's like Al, and then Lee, Sha. So stressing the Al. That's how I'm interpreting that. It's like Al, Alicia, Alicia, Alicia. I got it. Look at. Yeah, we got it. All right, cool.
Are you just saying that because you don't want us to do this anymore, or are you saying that because we got it right? What did you say? Like, shut up, Matthias.
Just
Go to bed.
Just leave. Yeah, so that's why
Nice.
that's what I was saying. I was like, capitalize. Okay, cool. All right. I look forward to this conversation because we're going to have it again next week.
Same time next Tuesday. He's no different from the tweeter people.
Bam. Okay. By the way, guys, my name is pronounced Jeff. Sometimes people have a hard time with that.
Jeff.
All right, I'm ending this.
My name's pronounced